afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. For this month's Bird Notes, we're talking about a sure sign of spring, bluebirds. Joining me, as he does each month, is conservation biologist from Audubon, Vermont, Mark LaBarr. Good to see you again, Mark.
Always great to be here, Jolie.
And when are we going to see bluebirds in Vermont?
Well, you know, bluebirds are interesting because we off and on, depending on the year, in the winter, we can see bluebirds at various times during the winter. But normally most of the bluebirds start arriving in March, April, thereabouts. They're short distance migrants, you know, not having to travel very far in order to get back here. And so now is a good time to, you know, for everybody to get ready for the potential of having bluebirds. Here's a great shot, you know, bluebirds, awesome song. They're a thrush, you know, related to our robin, wood thrush, veery. They're, when it comes down to the thrushes, one of the more spectacular looking thrush with that colorful back blue and that nice red. And you know, they begin showing up again in March and April, and oftentimes folks will see them singing from a power line, or if they happen to have, you know, bluebird boxes or nest boxes. This is a female, as with a lot of birds, much duller. You know, not as much rustiness on the front, and the blue is duller, and this one's carrying nesting materials. And so if you see this, you know that things are going on somewhere. Now, traditionally, bluebirds are, you know, they're cavity nesters, and so they would use natural cavities in trees. You know, prior to us humans coming along with our nest boxes. And they use those cavities in order to raise young. This is a family, lots of little ones still wanting to be fed, even though they've made it out of the box. And this is a classic bluebird box there, you can see. And in this picture, you can see they're feeding the mealworms. So that's a bonus for the bluebirds. They don't have to go very far for a nice, nutritious snack.
And you said that they're short distance migrators. Where are they usually coming back from?
So, you know, they're coming back from a little bit further south from us, you know, down they're not flying down to, you know, South America like we have with a lot of our other migrants. And so, you know, as I mentioned, you know, bluebirds are cavity nesters, and so they really benefit from us humans putting out bluebird boxes, nest boxes for them to nest in. And this is kind of a, you know, your classic nest box. This one has a hole on the front that's about 1.5 inches wide. You can get, you know, various different instructions on how to build these online. This particular box has a hole guard on it. And that's that little piece of wood right in front of the hole, and that keeps the thing, you know, raccoons and stuff from reaching down. There are other boxes like this slant box, which might represent a more natural cavity, you know, with a slant on the front. Bluebirds will use these. And then the box that I've had success with in my yard is what's called a slit box. And again, this is a box obviously that has no hole on it, but has a slit on the top that allows the birds to get in and access their young or incubate the eggs. That one there is from my backyard, and I've had bluebirds now a couple, 2-3 years in a row, and I can sit on my porch and I can watch them and listen to them sing. It's always, having bluebirds around is always great.
It's also nice to bring the birds to you for a change.
It is, yes. I believe in passive birding. Many birders will travel thousands of miles to see a new species. And the way that I approach it, if I and the species, the bird, cross paths, then so be it.
The more the merrier.
The more the merrier, that's correct.
And how do I prepare one of these boxes, or do I have to clean it after last
year?
Yeah,
so, you know, one of the things that we want to think about this time of year as bluebirds are returning, it is good to get out and check your boxes and clean them out. Sometimes they have leftover nests from previous years, and too many nests in the box gets the chicks closer to the hole so predators can get there. Also, over the winter, you may have various other mammals deciding that this box is good. So on that last image you saw that the box, the side opens up, and that's a really good design. Some of them, they open up in the front, but that allows you to get out there and access those boxes and get most of the material that's in there out. Always good to give it a knock beforehand. You may find a little nest of mice. You may find a flying squirrel that will use those boxes. So depending on if you want to disrupt what's going on there at the time or leave them be, you can do that. But just preparing those boxes for returning bluebirds is always a good option this time of year.
Sure, knocking is always very polite.
It's always polite, and I've opened a number of boxes where things fly out at you, so it gives you a chance to be prepared for what might be taking advantage of that shelter.
Absolutely, and location is everything. Where should you put one of these
boxes? So nest boxes, and nest boxes come in various different shapes and sizes, different holes, sizes for different species, but with bluebirds, if you're looking to attract bluebirds, they are a species that like open fields. And so you see here in these two pictures, these are two pictures from the Audubon Center down in Huntington. You can see the boxes way out there in the middle of that field. The previous box, this one here, seems to be far enough away from that edge that we do have bluebirds. Again, this is the one in my backyard. If the boxes are too close to the edge, you may pick up other species that are cavity nesters. In the woods, the same thing. So you definitely want to make sure those boxes are out in the open and away from edgy stuff if you're looking for bluebirds.
And you said just barely that some other birds will take advantage of that. Is that a problem?
It all depends. In the case of native species, not so much. So oftentimes, probably the one bird that we'll see at nest boxes like this taking advantage of them is the tree swallow. And again, this is a bird of open fields. It's a species that's also declining. We're not seeing as many of them at the Green Mountain Audubon Center. So, the way I look at it, if the tree swallows take up, space in that house, I'm not going to be too concerned about it. We're helping native birds here in Vermont during the nesting season. Another one, this guy, another native, this is the house wren. Now the house wren is interesting because these little birds are aggressive. And so not only will they take up a number of bluebird boxes, so if you have 3 or 4 in a close area, the male house wren will fill each of those houses up with sticks and twigs and give his partner a selection of different boxes to choose from. But in doing so, it keeps the bluebirds and other birds away. And house wrens are also known. They will go into a nest box and they will peck holes in the eggs of other species. But again, they are native. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you get a box a little bit too close to the edge or in the woods, and you're likely to find the black-capped chickadee. Another cavity nester that will take advantage of these boxes. A great bird, one of my favorites. So if you're building boxes and you want to get a bluebird, build another one and put it close to the edge so the chickadees have a place to nest as well.
Okay, how about non-native birds like the house sparrow?
Yeah, so these are the tough ones. These are species that were introduced to the United States, the house sparrow being one of them. English sparrow is another name. Common city bird. They take advantage of all sorts of holes and empty things. And out in the country, they will occupy bluebird boxes or nest boxes. They too can be very aggressive and attack the eggs and even the adults of other birds that are nesting in there. So boxes that are set up near farms or other places that have large numbers of house sparrows, English sparrows, it can be really problematic to try to get any other bird but them in there.
And you mentioned maybe birds that will attack bluebird eggs or some competition. How about, you said raccoons earlier, what kind of predators do they have in that sense?
So, bluebirds, cavity nesters, there are things that are out there that, like the raccoon, which are able to take their arm and reach into the box and get chicks or eggs, and that's where that predator guard works. It doesn't let them bend their elbow to get their paws down in there to get that. So you can also on boxes put guards on the bottom, which will prevent things from climbing up and accessing the box. So there's a number of ways that you can keep predators away from the birds you're trying to attract.
And I've been told by our producer that you actually have a pretty good bluebird call yourself, and you mentioned earlier it's kind of distinct. Do you mind telling us what it
Bluebird
sounds
call?
like?
Oh my goodness. So bluebirds are thrushes. Oh boy. The bluebird, no, I don't.
You're
some,
okay.
some birds I do. The chestnut-sided warbler, pleased to meet you. But the
Sure.
bluebird is a warbling, melodical song, great to hear this time of year, and I would do it disservice to try to do it myself.
Absolutely, very humble of you.
Yeah.
And you said that these birds, obviously we've talked about how they migrate a little bit. How long are they in Vermont for?
So again, bluebirds, because they can take advantage of things like fruit, crabapple fruit and stuff like that, may stay a little bit longer. They sometimes show up during the winter time. They can return a little bit earlier because they can take advantage of these. They will tend to be in the valleys or in areas where you will see more of that fruit left over. Just like the occasional robin shows up, we always get calls, oh, the robins are here and it's winter. And if they're there, they're doing all right usually, and they're finding enough food to keep themselves available. And then if you have, folks that are putting mealworms and other choice little bits out for them at their feeder stations, you can often see them attracted to that too because they're coming in for the food source.
All right, thank you so much for joining me today, Mark.
You're very welcome.
And if you have a bird-related question, you can send it along to Mark at the address on your screen, or you can drop Mark an email. His address is mlabarr@audubon.org. Send Mark your questions, and don't forget to include a picture, and he'll try and find the answers for you on an upcoming edition of Bird Notes. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCAX. I'm Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.